Says the Heilige Mishnah, Yud Aleph, Amid Aleph. Hidla, alas, Geffen, Vesadalas, Vesakisim. I might translate one drop less, but please stop me if something is not clear. If someone lowers on top of the sukkah, the grapevine, the gourd vine, the branches, Vesikach al Gabah, and he puts schach on top of it, psula. Why? Because the schach is attached to the tree and it's possible. But in my sikach harbe, man, if the kosher schach is more than the puzzle schach that is there, or if you snip off the schach from the tree, then ksheira. Number one is the reason why there's more kosher schach is kosher, because the din of bittul, we've had this prior. Rashi here reminds us that there's a din of bittul. Fascinating concept of bittul, but here if you have more schach, it's kosher schach, the puzzle schach, it's kosher. Or if you cut off the schach from the tree, it's ksheir. Zaklal. The Mishnah teaches us the rule. Kosher mekabel tuma vein gidulei mina aretz ein v'sachim by. We use the example of metal rods. Chol davar she'ena mekabel tuma ve'gidulei mina aretz. Then yes, misachim by, which is regular branches, bamboo branches, etc. Things that grow from the ground. They're not mekabel tuma. Is your kosher schach.
Is there something that's not gidulei mina karka and it's also not mekabel tuma?
That is
stone or something?
Not gidulei karka. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there are items. What's an example?
A rock.
Yeah, rock, stone.
It's not gidulei karka, right? A stone.
Right? It's actually a shayla because it's hewn from the karka.
Right.
Yeah, you are correct. There has to be a reason, which I think the Gemara, we're not going to get to today, but the Gemara, I believe, is going to discuss that. I think so. And it's here, but I think so. Says the Gemara, Yasser Rav Yezikam Rav Huna, v'yasevika amar, oy sheksasan sheira. He was saying the din of the Mishnah. If you snip it off the tree, it's kosher. V'amar Rav. Now this v'amar Rav is really what blows open the sugya, these two words of Rav. Says Rav, cutting it off from the tree is not enough. V'tzarich linanea. You have to shake the branches, meaning you got to pick them up, you got to put them down, you got to recreate your sukkah, or else it is not kosher. What? Not a shackle. You're right, it's true. I'm being a little bit extreme, it's shikam machlekes how far, but you have to do something. Amrli Rav Huna. Says Rav Huna, 1 second. You're telling me Rav says this. Shmuel Amra. Shmuel says it. Rav Yosef turns his face, he's not happy with Rav Huna. V'amar Leini says, Atu Mika Mina L'chadolaim or Shmuel. Did I say Shmuel didn't say it? Amra Rav, V'amra Shmuel, Mabaya. Everyone holds, they gotta shake it, no problem. Amrli Rav Huna. Says Rav Huna, Hachi Kamina L'chad. This is what I meant to say to you. Shmuel Amra V'loi Rav. So now this is where also the sugya continues to blow open. Because first we thought Rav was one that shook it. Then the Gemara says they both hold shook it. Now Rav Huna says no, it's only Shmuel v'loi Rav. Why? The Rav achshuri machshuri. Because Rav holds its kosher without shaking. Now before we go to Kiha, so what is the lamaskana of the schach? We don't really know. Rav does say it, Shmuel does say it, neither say it, we're not sure. But there is some sort of concept out there requiring you to shake the schach. Why? Let's just speak this out. Rashi points out, because of the din of ta'aseh v'loi minha asui. You have to create your sukkah. If you put down pasal schach and then you snip it off, that sukkah was created and you're not creating it. It has to be ta'aseh. You have to build your sukkah v'loi minha asui. It can't come onto its own. Says the Gemara. Well, that's part of what we're debating. Rav did say Sarach Lananea, but now the Gemara is saying that Rav didn't say that, and it was only Shmuel. That's where Rav Huna was arguing, but it's true. It does sound like someone says something, we just don't know whom. I definitely agree with your assessment, and the truth is that's how we paskin, but it is definitely interesting, but the reason I'm speaking that out is because as we continue in the sugya, and it keeps going back and forth, you have to shake, you know have to shake, is cutting it enough, we sort of understand where it starts from. Kiha, the Rav Amram Chasida says the Gemara, like we find the Rav Amram Chasida Rami Techilta the Prumas le Parzuma Dinshe Basi. He put tzitzis on the garment of his Dinshe Basi. Rash says his wife, because he held a woman is chayiv in tzitzis, because tzitzis he held is not a time val mitzvah. We pointed out number one it is, and number two, when we cannot really tzitzis because of lo yelbash. But he, Rav Amr Chasida, held that they could, so he made tzitzis for his wife to la'an. That's not the reason why we're bringing down that story. He hung the strings, v'loi pasak rashi chutin shalahen. All the string was one long string that he double tripled, quadrupled over, put it through, but he didn't snip the end. So you have, again, just to give our quick visual again, you have different cables every day, Baruch Hashem. You have your long string, and then you double it over, and then you triple it over, and then you put it through the string of your tzitzis, azai. So what do you have? You have a lot of attached ends. But then afterwards, you take a scissor and you snip it. Once you snip it, then you have kosher tzitzis. The question is, when you put it through, or maybe even when you tied the knot, we're about to see, maybe it wasn't kosher because it wasn't strings. Only afterwards you created strings. So Rav Amram Chasida created a talani hangiv loy pasik rosh chutin. He didn't snip the end shalahen. Also, like Rav Chia Barashi, Amar lei ha Chia Amar Rav mifaskon snip it vehin kasher. Zeo. Just cut it, which again would translate back to our case. Just cut off the schach. That's all you need to do. Alma, what do we see? Psikasan zuhi asiyasan. Hachanami ksisasan, cutting it zuhi asiyasan. So proves the Gemara that according to Rav, you do not need to shake it. It will be enough to do what? To cut the ends, as the cutting is the creation of the tzitzis of the schach. Continues the Gemara. So that's Rav. V'savar Shmuel lo yamrinam sigasan zu asiyasan. You're telling me, Rav David, Erev Tov. You made a bracha. V'savar Shmuel lo yamrinam sigasan zu asiyasan. Does Shmuel disagree? V'atani Shmuel misham Rav Chia. But Shmuel himself learned from Rav Chia. Hitel shnei kranois. Shmuel says a similar din about tzitzis, that you put it through two corners of the garment at one time as achas, and then similarly v'achar kach pasak, and afterwards you snip the ends, ksherim. Shmuel said that's also kosher. Says the Gemara, my lav shekoisher, that you put it through, and again you put it through and they're all attached. You tied the knots, and then achar kach paisik, and afterwards you snipped it, says the Gemara. And therefore we would have a raya that what? Shmuel concurs with Rav that snipping it is enough, says the Gemara. Loi, she'paisik, and then you tied it. Vacha kaisher. Paisik vacha kaisher, I remember. So shkoyach, what did you do? You made strings and then you made tzitzis. Of course it's kosher. What's the chiddush? Says the Gemara, Mahu the Taim was turned off to Yud 11a-11b. I would have thought, being on kanaf v'shas psil, I would think it needs to be at the time you hung it. At the time you put it through, it has to be a kanaf. Meaning, when you put it through, it has to be a kosher string, and you can't create the string afterwards. V'leka, kamash one that Shmuel holds that's kosher. But at the moment, we don't have a raya either way for Shmuel. For Rav, we have a raya that cutting it is enough. For Shmuel, we don't have a raya. Continues the Gemara, Meisvei, we're on the top line of Yud 11a-11b. Asks the Gemara and Shitas Rav that he just said that cutting it is enough. Says the Braisa, Tala'an v'loi pasik rosh chutin shalahan, if you hung it without snipping the ends. Psulin, it is possible. Says the Gemara, my love. What does it mean that it's possible? Psulin la'ilam. That you can never rectify it, meaning you cannot snip it and thereby create the strings. It's too late. Utiyofta de Rav, and therefore suggests the Gemara to kasha on Rav, because we see that you cannot just cut it and thereby machshir it. Amal Rav, no. My psulim ad sheyefsiku. It's possible until you snip the ends. Ushmul Amar Psulim la'olam, you can never rectify it. So again, another raya that Rav holds, snipping it is enough, and you don't have to do anything else. And Shmuel holds, no, it is possible la'olam, snipping it is not enough. Another lashon Amar Master B'Didiav Yov died. The story of us coming to Shmuel Varmali Psulin la'olam. Meisvei. So yeah, you have to hate him out, which in the world of tzitzis is quite complicated. If you ever tried that one, it's when you make tzitzis with kids and they mess up on like the first one, you're like, oh no, you gotta undo the whole thing. It's a mess. It's a mess because they're already like wrapped around.
Take down all the schach.
No, so schach is easy. You just lift it and put it down. You don't have to take it off. You're even going to Shmuel again. Everyone holds the chumrah is just to lift it. The shaila is snipping it enough. But everyone holds just moving it a little bit.
essentially re-putting it.
Exactly. Even though that's like, the chaver and the mikveh that just do the finger out. Everyone says, "Oh, what are they doing?" It might look funny, but look, I don't know why we're taking videos, but anyways. But lemaisa, it's a different story. But lemaisa, it's you're out of the mikveh, you're in the mikveh. Who cares? Meis ve'frak the Gemara nachai kashan Rav. Ask the Gemara Tilan if you hung it v'achach pasik rosh chut shalem and then you snipped it, psulin. And the brisa. So what do we see? It's basel. Finished. Void, kasha number 2. Void tani gabi sukkah. We have a brisa with regard to sukkah. Tas v'loy min ha'asui, says the brisa. You have to create your sukkah. V'loy min ha'asui, you can't be created. Mikan number 4. What do we see? Hidla las, like geffen if you lower the vine, v'sa delas, and the gourd, v'sa kisim, and the branches. V'sikach al gabon, and you put tzchach and ibsula. Heichi dami, what's the case? Ilema v'shaloi ksasan. If you just leaned it down and you didn't snip it, my area mishav daslam and asli. Why are you telling me that it's possible? Because daslam and asli? No. Teipa glade and mechubarin in it. It's puzzle. It's connected to the tree. It's mechubar. All you need is make a sukkah bichlal. Ela b'shek sasan. Must be you cut it. V'katani psula shma'amin adlamin excesses uyasi asan utiyofta de Rav. And we have a kasha from the Brisa and Rav. So we have 2 kashas on Rav. The first kasha was the Brisa that said, in the case of tzitzis, if you hung it without snipping it, it's puzzle. Second is from Sukkah. Amr l'charav. So Rav responds, why by sukkah it's different? That you pulled off the branches. So what? Who cares? Pulling it off, same thing as snipping it. It's not recognizable that it's detached. Now, just to point out over there, this is a very difficult answer. Who cares? If Rav's whole yisoid is ksisas and cutting it, is the asiyah, is creating the sukkah, we'll say yeshivish, you're shaffing the sukkah, there's a chalais when you cut it. Who cares if you snipped it or you pulled it off? Why does it have to be minker? Where's this new nikuda that Rav says? Because it's not recognizable. Like when you pull it off, it's still up, it's a shtickle, whatever. Who cares? You pulled it off. It's now kosher schach. You recreated your sukkah just to point out the chiddush of the Gemara. Concludes this part of the Gemara. Mikol makam tlan v'chapasik kasha l'Rav. The first part is the kasha Rav. Ends off the Gemara kasha. That really concludes the segment of Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav holds his own that what? Cutting it is enough. According to Rav, do you have to shake the schach? No. Rav was the one that said, Sarach l'naneya, kasha l'ma'isa lo yodea. That's the Gemara went back and forth. Maybe it's Shmuel, according to what we're saying right now. According to what we're saying right now, Shmuel is the one that's saying that cutting it is not enough. And according to Shmuel, what would you have to do? You would have to be minaneya. Lema kitanai, says the Gemara. As we wait for a Meir, let's say that the Machlokes Rav and Shmuel is a Machlokes Tanoim Avar ve'lokdan Pasol. Here are plates Chevra Avar ve'lokdan. This is the case of Hadassim Mishnah Daf Lamed Beis. You have Hadassim that have more berries than leaves. The halacha is it's Pasol. What do you got to do? You got to flick off those berries. Are you allowed to flick off the berries in Yontif? The answer is no. Says the Brisa. What if you did it? You're not allowed to take off the berries in Yontif. What if you did? What if you did? So you were over an Isser, you messed up, but now, tachlis, do you have a kosher das or not? Because right now your das doesn't have any berries on it. So is the fact that you violated the halacha and knocked them off on Yontif, does that factor into the story? Says the Brisa, Avar ve'lokdan. If you were over halacha and you were reluctant, you picked off, you knocked off the berries, Pasal, the Rav Shimon you're tzaddik, it's Pasal. Good question. I partially was thinking that. Yeah, if you think about it deeply, there's many chilukim one could say, the shells, which is the right chiluk. But anyways, says the Gemara, Savrua, they held as follows. The Kuli Alm, everyone holds number 1. Again, there's 3 variables. Often the problem and the confusion in the Gemara is just losing yourself in the story. But if you realize there's 3 variables, then it's very simple. You just could play around with it. It's very easy. That's what the Gemara does right now. Says the Gemara number 1. Everyone holds Lulav Sarach Agid, you got to bind the Lulav. Number 2. V'alfina Lulav mi Sukkah. Everyone holds you learn out Lulav from Sukkah, which is what? So if you hold those 2 hanachas, those two assumptions. So what's the machlokes with regard to the hadassim? We're at 8, okay? My love, v'hakamifligi, says the Gemara. Demand machshir, according to the one that says it's kosher. Savar the chachamim armin gabi Succah Chazarah yasan, that the knocking off the berries, that the cutting off the schach, that's the creation of the entity. So therefore, even though lulav sarach agad, even though tassel and asui, the knocking off the berries makes it kosher. You're over an aver, which by the way makes your kasha a little bit stronger, because if it's mamish to asiya, then it really is a mitzvah of aver. Good kasha. But says the Gemara, Chazarah 11a-11b, if gabi lulav nami armin Chazarah 11a-11b, uman the pasuk of Shimon something sever loy armin gabi Chazarah 11a-11b. He doesn't allow the cutting off to create it like Shita Shmuel. If gabi lulav nami armin Chazarah 11a-11b, it's halted by lulav knocking off the berries. So the adasim will not be the creation of the adasim, therefore will not machsher up your dalid minim. So suggests the Gemara, and again, it's always a kasha. It's one of those things. I said this over in the Daf Yomi shiur, and so many people told me afterwards that they never chap. That's what's going on in the Gemara. A lema ketanoi is a kasha. Why is it a kasha? What do you mean? We all went to yeshiva that we like everything to fit up, right? The shir klali is everyone holds like each other. It's true. It's beautiful. But if we have a machlekes, Rav Shimon Yitzchak and the Chachamim mimicking, we're just waiting for number 10, mimicking Rav and Shmuel, that's like Gishmak. Why are they arguing an argument that already was? That's what a lema kitanoi is. The Rav and Shmuel are having the same machlekes as the Tanoim? Can't be. Answers the Gemara, lie. It's not the machlekes. The kuliyama. Now again, we have those 3 variables. So our different terutzim are going to be basically just to flip around the variables. Like the kuliyama loy armin gabi Succah Chazarah is yasin. That's not the shayla. And therefore, they're not arguing about our discussion. So what's the machlekes? Mil lula misaga gumifli yman the machsav loy afin lula misaga man the basav loy afin lula misaga. By same teretz number 2. Severe land lulav sarach agad. Then what? Kuliyama lo pligi delfin lula misaga. What's the machlekes? All gumifli marsav sarach agad marsav ein sarach agad. Givaldik. Chaver, let's try our best.